Algebra 1, Sensei Learning System, Lesson 22. We want to make a transformation. This right here represents the basic function. This will represent, with all the parameters here, the transformation. A is any number that multiplies outside of the function. B is any number that multiplies on the x inside the function. C is any number that adds or subtracts inside the function. And D represents any number that adds or subtracts outside the function. Now the A parameter, let's give you a little chart here. Okay, the A parameter, if it's negative, if the A parameter is negative, it will flip the graph across the x-axis. If the B parameter is negative, this will give you a reflection about the y-axis. If the C parameter is negative, it will shift the graph to the right. And if the D parameter is negative, it will shift the graph downward. So those are what your four parameters would do. So on this first graph, I want to identify my parameters. My first parameter here, A is -1, which is on the outside. My B parameter is on the inside here on the x, which is understood 1. My C parameter is the 4 here, adding on the inside. And my D parameter here is -2, subtracting on the outside. I'm going to remove all the parameters except for the understood 1, since that cannot be removed anyway. And what we get is the basic function, y equals x squared. Now the graph of this, y equals x squared, is a parabola with a vertex at 0, 0. So, next, the order that we'll put the parameters back on will be this order. C, bad. We'll first put on the C parameter, then the B parameter, the A parameter, and then the D parameter. So let's first put on the C parameter, which is the adding 4. So this becomes y equals x plus 4 inside, all to the second power. Okay, if a C parameter is negative, we will move to the right. But this C parameter is positive, so we're going to move 4 times to the left. So let's change this graph to going 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left. And here's the new parabola. Okay, next. We'll take the x plus 4 here with the C parameter in it. And next we'll put a B parameter, but the B parameter is understood 1, so we'll skip that. And we'll go to the A parameter, which is the -1 on the outside. So we'll put a -1 here. Okay. Okay. -1s will cause a reflection about the x-axis. So here's the x-axis here. So it's going to go from top of the x-axis to the bottom of the x-axis. So let's represent that. So we're still out 1, 2, 3, 4, but the graph will now be flipped across the x-axis. Okay, finally, we'll put on our D parameter. The D parameter is the -2, so we'll put that on the outside of here. So y equals -x plus 4, all squared, and then my -2. A D parameter, if it's negative, will move the graph downward. So this will move down 2 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4 already to the left, but then down 2. And so here's where my vertex is now. And there's my graph. And this is the final graph of this function. Okay, number 2. Number 2, we have y equals -square root of x minus 3. And that last one, yeah, -4. Okay, we're going to identify our parameters. Our A parameter is going to be a -1. The B parameter is going to be +1. The C parameter is going to be -3. and this right here is going to be our D parameter, -4. And so we will first remove all our parameters and get our basic function. So we get y equals the square root of x. Y equals the square root of x is our basic graph, and it looks like this. It starts from the origin 0, 0 and goes in this direction. Okay, next, the order that we're going to put the parameters back on will be C, B, A, D, C bad. So let's put the C parameter back on first, which is the -3 inside. So this becomes y equals the square root of x and then a -3. Okay, the -3, according to our chart, if C's are negative, it'll move us to the right. So let's take the graph and move 3 times to the right. So 1, 2, 3. And then we graph our function going in the same direction. Next is our B parameter, which is understood 1, so we can skip that. So we'll go to the A parameter, which is a -1 on the outside. So y equals the square root of x minus 3, and now with a negative on the outside. Okay, negatives on A's gives you a reflection about the x-axis. So here's our x-axis right here, and we'll have a reflection about it. So we'll still go out 1, 2, 3, but now instead of above the graph, it'll now be below the graph. And that's our new graph. And finally, we'll put on our D parameter, which is the -4. So y equals negative square root of x minus 3, and then -4. Okay, so with the -4, the D parameter, if D parameters are negative, the graph will go downward 4 times. So we'll still be out 1, 2, 3 times, but we'll go down 1, 2, 3, and 4 times. So this is where our new graph starts, and then it goes here, same direction, same orientation. Okay, number 3. We have y equals negative absolute value of x minus 2, all plus 5. So we'll identify our parameters first. The A parameter is the -1, the B parameter is the understood 1 on the x, the C parameter is the -2, and the D parameter is the +5 here. So we'll remove all the parameters, and what we'll have left is the basic function of y equals the absolute value of x. Now the absolute value of x is the one that has the V shape. So it kind of bounces at the origin. Okay, so there's our graph of the basic. Now we'll put the terms back on in the order of C bad. So C parameter first, which is the -2. So this will be y equals the absolute value of x minus 2. Now, with the C parameter being -2, this will take our graph 2 times to the right. So 1, 2, 2 times to the right. And then we draw a vertex there. Okay, next. The B parameter will be next. It's understood 1, so we'll move to the A parameter, which is -1. So this is now y equals absolute value of x minus 2 with a negative on the outside. Okay, so with the negative here, this will give us a reflection about the x-axis, because negative A's gives us a reflection about the x-axis. So we'll have a reflection here about the x-axis, reflection about the x, and let's see, 1, 2, and there's a reflection right there. Okay, now let's put on our D parameter, which is the +5. So y equals negative x minus 2, and then we'll add the +5. Okay, what happens now If the D parameter were negative, it would go down, but since it's positive, it's going to go upward. So let's go out to 1, 2, but then go up 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Make that a little taller in there. Okay, so it's actually going to start from this point right here and go down. And that's your graph.